All right, so we're catching up with Chad Peters, CEO of Ridgeline Minerals, RDG on the TSX-V. Good afternoon, Chad. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we haven't done this in a while, and we spoke briefly at Beaver Creek, but I kind of want to actually spend some time to catch up on how the conference was for you. What did you learn in the meetings? What were investors like most interested in?
Right. Well, I mean, I've been going to Beaver Creek every year for 6 years, and it was by far the most excited, mood definitely from investors and everyone there that I'd seen in the last 6 years. But on top of that, I was talking to guys that have been going for 15 years, and they said the exact same thing. So it was pretty. It was a pretty frothy conference. For the first time in a long time, I had people coming into the room like excited to shake my hand and like tell me more about the company instead of like, tell me why I shouldn't be selling your stock, which was, in the worst of the bear market, that was kind of the, that would be the meeting was here's why you should hold, not here's why you should hold, not here's why you should be buying more. So
Man,
it was
that's
very
funny.
nice. Yeah, not to be down on the last few years, but it was a really nice change. I even had a guy that bought stock in the middle of my pitch, right? Like he actually was sitting there on his phone, bought a bit of stock on his phone and said, all right, I got a starter position going. He's like, tell me more. So
that's why your stock jumped that day.
We went we were up like 20% that day. I think he had a bit to do with that.
Man.
So yeah, I think we traded up almost 25% on like 3x normal volume throughout the show. So I think if that's, I can say all day long that was a great show, but I think it showed with the fact that people who were at the show were actively buying little juniors like us, let alone some of the bigger names that were there. So had a lot of folks wanting to do private placements, all that kind of stuff. And you can see in the market lately, we've just seen a ton of private placements flying off the shelf. So clearly a lot of folks have extra cash to push into stuff. And I think it's hopefully a good sign for the next few months.
Okay, yeah. So it's interesting because my take from Beaver Creek was everybody's optimistic.
Yep.
But it didn't feel like, oh no, people are too optimistic and this is a sign of a top, right? Like it was kind of like it was a serious level of positivity, but like, hey, we've got to get to work now.
Yeah, it definitely felt like people finally were just like, okay, now I can actually go raise money to drill my projects and stuff like that. It definitely didn't feel like we were, the cab drivers weren't telling you to buy stock yet right on the way up to the show. So that was a good sign that we're not quite there yet. I actually saw one thing that I saw a lot of was a lot of folks still talking about like M&A too, like junior companies, even though that the market was turning, there was still a lot of folks that, were like, hey, I'm still looking to, merge, do M&A. Right. Like there was a lot of that conversation going around. I just think the last few years were really tough on a lot of companies, both their cap structure and the management teams. Right. And so I think people are still very open to pitching in with larger groups. And even though the markets are turning, I still think there is going to be a lot more of that M&A and the junior, little micro caps and stuff, just slapping their companies together and stuff. I think there will be more of that in the next couple months.
That's good. I mean, I like that, sort of M&A where you're cutting down on corporate expenses and you're adding some scale, to the company.
Yeah, totally.
Another piece of news that came on the back of Beaver Creek was the gold show in Denver and the announcement from Barrick about Fourmile. I mean, this kind of really took the market. It grabbed the market's attention. It added 10 billion to Barrick's market cap in like a week.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, and how does it affect you guys?
I live 3 hours from Fourmile and have been following Fourmile since its discovery, and it took me by surprise just how amazing it was too, right? Like that, I think that is a standalone. I don't know if there's anything globally that even comes close to matching like the size and grade of that thing, right? And the fact that it's so close to infrastructure on, in a safe jurisdiction like Nevada, it's incredible. And I think their last resource was around 3 million ounces. I think I have it on my deck, actually. I can show you today. I think it's like 3 million ounces of about 10 grams per ton, right? Was like their last resource from like 2023 or something like that. So they 5x'd that thing in like, 24 months. It's incredible. And you look at some of the intercepts, 20, 30, 40 meters of like, 1.5 to 2 ounces per ton gold per ton over those kind of thicknesses. It's going to be an incredible mine.
Yeah, I wonder if some people took a look at the Swift project again and said, hey, hold on, maybe this is the next Fourmile.
We traded up pretty good on I think the following like 3-4 days after the announcement of that deal, we saw an increase in liquidity as well. And our market maker couldn't track who it was. It just appeared to be kind of retail coming in. So yeah, I think it did put a little bit of excitement back on Swift, and that project's, for anyone, we can talk about it in a little bit. I'll show you some, where the project is, but we're kind of the bookend on the other end of the Cortez trend. So you have Fourmile on one end, Swift, our project is 30 kilometers away on the other side of the trend, and you got about 50 million ounces of gold sandwiched between and across about 5 mines. So, I mean, it's an incredible district, and the cool thing is you say it's 15 million ounces, but like you mentioned earlier, like Bristow's suggesting before he left that it could be, double that size. So you're talking about what would be the largest deposit on the Cortez trend is actually not even in the core of it, right? It would actually be kind of the southeast tip of the trend, which essentially leaves it wide open in that direction. But it also shows that, on our project at Swift, where we're drilling, you could also make a material discovery on the other end of the trend. So
that sounds good. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that idea. Yeah, we need the 2 biggest deposits at the ends of the trend.
Yeah.
Man, I can only dream that comes true as well. I mean, look, if it's half as good as Fourmile, I'd be okay with that too, Chad.
half as good as Fourmile would still have it ranking in like the top 10 deposits globally. So yeah, I'd be just fine with that. I mean, you might even start wearing a Ridgeline hat instead of Talon, right?
Oh man, yes, I would. In fact, I promise I will.
Yeah,
I promise. Okay,
I'll send you a new one.
Thank you. I still have my Ridgeline hat. I just put it in the closet, so I have to get. So yeah, look, if you have a good drill result, I promise I will find that hat and wear it for a month. I absolutely promise.
Sounds good.
All right, so yeah, let's dig in here and let's talk about the projects and the drill programs.
You bet. Let me just share my screen here.
We'll talk about the one that I think most people are interested in, the Chinchilla Sulfide drilling that's ongoing. I think you're on hole 2, right? Is that right?
Yes, we are on. Chinchilla Sulfide. We're on hole 2. Sorry, I was just trying to do 2 things at once, which turns out I'm not great at. I'm sharing my screen. All right, can you see me?
I can see it.
All right, beautiful. Yeah, so we're on hole 2 at Selena. So for anyone looking, let me see here. Just gotta get a few things moved around on my screen so I can use it. There we go. Okay, so when we're looking at the Selena project, it's directly on trend of the Robinson mine, big Cretaceous porphyry trend in Nevada. And when you look at the project itself, I mean, we're sitting, just for a little background, we're right beside Freeport-McMoran's Butte Valley porphyry. So, that's a big copper porphyry source. It's something was discovered in the 1970s. It is pumping all the fluids into the Selena project and forming the carbonate replacement deposit that we're chasing, and originally discovered as Chinchilla oxide back in 2020. So when you look at Chinchilla oxide, when I'm talking about bookends on the Cortez trend, it's a very similar story here. You got the Butte Valley porphyry on the left. You have our Chinchilla oxide discovery sitting over here on the right. We drilled over 10,000 meters into Chinchilla oxide. There's a very real open pit silver and gold opportunity there that I think will eventually hopefully be mined someday. But the real prize would be discovering a Taylor sulfide type analog, a deep discovery of sulfide CRD. So this just shows where our 3 holes are being drilled. Hole 1 was the northernmost hole in the system, definitely the farthest away from any known drilling. And we saw a lot of really, really interesting alteration that's consistent with the CRD alteration that we see at Chinchilla oxide. We just saw it on a much larger scale, right, over larger thicknesses, which I think is a really good sign. We're now going into kind of the heart of the system with hole 2, which is directly online of the Chinchilla oxide deposit here that outcrops at surface. So, it's Chinchilla oxide. We drilled up to, 32 meters of 150 grams silver, 4% lead zinc, some really high grades, including within that. We're just hoping to kind of replicate those grades and thicknesses, but at depth at Chinchilla sulfide. And if we can prove that, it really shows that I think we're onto something pretty exciting. So if you look at this in 3D, here's where hole 2 is going to be drilling. We're about right where that kind of magenta pink is, or purple. We're right drilling through that unit right now. So once we punch through that, we immediately, that's a bunch of shales, which actually act kind of like a cap rock. Once we punch through those, we're going to be directly into the limestone host rocks of the Gilmet limestone. And that is the same rocks, if you notice, at Chinchilla Oxide, that's where the Chinchilla Oxide mineralization sits, is directly underneath those shales in that blue outline. And it's kind of right up, snugged up against the edge of that. So we have one drill hole. If you go 2.5 kilometers down dip, hole 37, zoom in a little bit for you. Hole 37 here, it hit some pretty significant CRD alteration, over 50 meters of continuous silver, lead, and zinc, low grade, with up to 3 meters of 40 grams silver and 7% lead, zinc, and 3 grams gold. And we drilled right into the top of that MT anomaly. So we're not really reinventing the wheel with this hole. Now that we know that MT anomaly exists, we didn't know that when we drilled hole 37 back in 2022. We're just taking it deeper. We're drilling through the core of this anomaly, and we want to drill right out the bottom. And that's the thing that's really important with an MT survey. Just for folks to, a little background, MT is just measuring electrical conductivity. So when they pump electricity into their surface, how quickly is that electricity conducting down through the Earth's surface and returning back to the receivers at surface, right? And they use that to create a model of where there's potential anomalies. So this big Easter egg, this purple Easter egg, it's probably not a big circle, right? Like the geophysical model likes to just smooth everything and make it nice and, create big blobs. You see it everywhere, right? Hey, I'm drilling this porphyry donut. In reality, it ends up being shaped quite a bit different, right? And it's no different here. So the really important thing is to drill right through the entire anomaly, because we just don't know where the meat of it's going to be, right? So this is a really exciting hole. Just to put it in context, when you look at like what we're chasing as far as scale, this is what you would look like if you overlaid the Taylor deposit that South 32 owns in Arizona and is putting into production. This is the scale of their deposit, right? So you can fit the entire 150 million odd ton CRD at Taylor into the footprint of our MT anomaly. And when you look to the left, that's the Sunnyside porphyry. That is the source to the Taylor deposit. And what I want to highlight there is just, you're essentially the exact same distance from the Sunnyside porphyry to the Taylor deposit as we are from the Butte Valley porphyry, which is superimposed behind that, right, to our MT anomaly. So we're in the right kind of, you call it the zonation pattern of a classic CRD system. We have known mineralization in hole 37 and a big whopping MT anomaly at depth.
Basically a perfect match.
It's
perfect.
I mean, I hope this ages well, because like one of those things where, it's like, God, if this doesn't hit, I don't know what the heck that MT anomaly is.
So let me ask you some dumb questions. So with the MT anomaly at Taylor, do they have a very similar kind of MT anomaly?
Yep. So they actually do. And funny enough, the majority of their deposit is hosted along the footwall side of a major thrust fault. So if you actually look behind here, I actually don't think I can notate in Google meetings here, but right behind that, you can see all these kind of shallowly dipping faults that are all those are reverse faults that are bleeding off of a major thrust. So we see a very similar structural architecture as Taylor. We have a similar thickness of host rock, which is about 1,500 vertical feet. And then their MT anomaly, the meat of their deposit falls within kind of the 50 to 150 ohm meter. So if you look down in our legend here, the red is 50, the orange is 100, yellow is 250. So their deposit falls kind of in that kind of between red and orange, right? Is kind of where their system pops out. For us, we don't know exactly yet where the mineralization sits. We know that oxide mineralization at hole 37 falls within the 250 ohm meter anomaly. So we think that we're zoning into it. And I think that somewhere between essentially, 100 ohm meters and our strongest conductor, which is 25 ohm meters at the core of the purple.
25. That's very some sulfides right there.
It's I mean, just purely, like, I think you need to preface this to anyone watching. Like, we're talking about this geophysics is looking down over 1,000 meters, 3,000 vertical feet below the surface, and it's identifying these conductors, right? So, I mean, this is very much, like it's not a perfect science. So what that conductor is representing, how the mineralization sits in relation to the thrust faults and the stratigraphy. I mean, there's so many factors that affect how this thing's going to look. But yeah, I mean, all the signs we have, Taylor as a good analog to compare against, and everything is lining up very nicely compared to Taylor. So now the only thing left is the hole's only a third done right now. We're about 1,000 feet above our start of our target horizon. So, we got another 7 days to go till we kind of start getting into the top of it. And I hope that there's multiple zones within the, that 1,500 foot thick package of rock. Be great.
Yeah. This is one of the top, I would say top 5 targets in the world right now for me. I mean, like it doesn't get much better than this one. But yeah, let's preface it.
I'm going to put that as a quote on my website.
It's a deep target. And I mean, I'm pretty confident you're going to hit, but the word hit is relative.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So when we're talking about 800 meters deep or 1,000 meters, we don't know exactly how deep the ore body is, and I'm being speculative here by even calling it an ore body, but I think it's there. What kind of size and average grade do you think we need to see here to be economic?
Right. Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. Like I'm pretty confident that we're going to, do I think we can deliver 3 meters at, 40 grams silver and 7% lead zinc again? Yeah, probably. We're drilling right underneath that same hole. There's a good chance that we're going to see some mineralization, but, real success for this, I think, is, at Chinchilla Oxide, for example, if you look over to the right, our average grades here, or thicknesses in the thickest part of the zone is 30 to 60 meters, right? So I think that, our basic, for me, a basic, test here would be, can we hit something that falls within Chinchilla Oxide thickness? And I think you need to see somewhere around at least 500 grams per ton silver equivalent plus, I think, to be really, like at those depths, right? I think that would be a very, very positive drill hole, and chances of hitting the best part of the system on the first hole are, of course, quite rare, right? So if we can go out and go and hit something like that, right, 20, 30, 40 meters of 400 to 600 grams per ton silver equivalent, I would be incredibly excited. That to me would be like, okay, we have both scale, we know we have grade, and with additional drilling, I'm sure we can vector into even higher grades than that, right? And with silver ripping the way it is, that would certainly be more than enough grade to justify those kind of depths. I think when you look at Taylor, I think it's 150 million tons of about 80 grams per ton silver, about 5% lead zinc, and around 0.2 or 0.3% copper. So don't quote me on those exact numbers. And that also
about right. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're high. There's deep sulfide zone is even higher grade. I think you're seeing closer to 10+% lead zinc and a few hundred grams per ton silver. So that would be they're drilling at very similar depths. I think the deepest parts of the Taylor deposit are around 1,500 meters down, and that's exactly our bottom of our deepest hole will be about 1,500 meters. So we're same stratigraphy, similar structural setting, similar depths. We just need to see, I think, some decent thickness and even modest grades would be very, very exciting.
Yeah, I tell you what, for me, if you get an intercept of more than 20 meters with silver grades above 200 or 300 grams per ton with some lead zinc in there and some copper snips, I think that's a new discovery. I think that's a winner.
I think so too.
Especially in a $45, silver price environment.
This looks dramatically different than when I drilled hole 37, for example, in like a $24 silver environment and in a bear market. So, we drilled, for example, even hole 45. I think we announced that in January of 2023, and we had up to 6 meters of 480 silver, 18% lead zinc, and 0.1 grams gold. Now, that's obviously very, very high grade, right? But if we could hit anything like that in the 10, 20 meter range out at Chinchilla Sulfide as an including interval, yeah, that'd be pretty amazing.
Okay, so we're all hot and bothered by this drill target again. Give us an update on where's hole 2 at again? Where does it terminate?
Yep.
And then what's the plan for hole 3? And is there a chance there might be a 4th or 5th hole?
Yeah, you bet. So this is just now looking, we were looking north before, now we're actually looking kind of back up the hill towards Chinchilla Sulfide in a cross section. And this just shows that the empty anomaly, not only is it 1.5 kilometers wide in the east-west, but it's also over 2 kilometers long north-south. So we drilled the shallowest and deepest hole with hole 1. That hole went right through. We TD'd it about the red edge of the red anomaly there. And then hole 2 is not even at hole 38 for depth right now. We're actually kind of just at the bottom of that purple zone, up near the top of the hole. And we're going to take that all the way down to probably, I hope we can get it at least through the red anomaly at the bottom as well, right? You get red or orange, depending on how the drilling's going. So that'd be 1,300 to 1,400 meters total depth. Yeah, and then hole 3, right smack in the middle. So all 3 of these holes are pre-collared. They're going to be drilled. The chance for a 4th or a 5th hole, I think, is entirely results dependent. So South 32, we love working with them. I mean, to be honest, it feels like we're working with another exploration company, right? Even though they're a $20 billion base metal company, right? So they're pretty excited about this. I think they, but they're going to be just like any major. They're probably going to be pretty pragmatic with their exploration. So I think the chances of drilling a 4th or 5th are probably quite low just because of the winter season. So it makes it tough to drill in the winter. And the other thing is we need to drill a water well, which we have permitted at site, but we're paying almost $50,000 a month just for water haulage, right? Just getting water hauled to our site. So, drilling a $400,000 water hole so that we can actually source our own water would be far more cost effective. If we make a discovery and say, hey, we're going to drill 10 holes in 2026, I'd want to drill that water hole first, right? It'll save us over $1 million almost just in water.
Okay. Yeah. So that makes sense. So you basically, it sounds like you're 1,000 feet or maybe a little more than 1,000 feet into hole 2.
1,800 as of today, actually.
Oh, okay, 1,800 feet. Okay,
yeah,
so you're well into it. Okay.
Those sections are in meters, so a little bit deceiving.
And also, like, maybe is it cut off at the top, or is that the topographic surface?
That's just the topographic surface.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're at 1,800 feet. So you're almost you're over 500 meters into it. Okay, but we're going to 1,500 meters.
And we'll probably hit target right around, I think around the hope is around 850 or 900 meters. Our geologist Gabe, he's an incredible 3D modeler, and he actually, the last lithologic pick that we had here at started at 1850, and he was 20 meters off. So he's doing a pretty good job with his model so far. So stratigraphy's all matching up. So yeah, pretty confident in saying, somewhere around 850 is where hopefully the fireworks start, and there should be, intermittent zones at favorable favorable beds and fault intersections for another 700-800 meters.
And the drilling progress, 30 meters a day, is that about right?
Actually, the guys have been doing really good. So the first hole was really difficult. We were averaging, sometimes only 10 or 15 meters every 24 hours. We're closer to 30 to 40 meters every day, which has been excellent. That's pretty standard for Nevada. That'd be, good production.
So fingers crossed, knock on wood, at target depth in about 7 or 8 days, I would guess then.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not going to ask you about core picks or any of that stuff. We'll just move on. I'm sure that
you're not getting them.
You're going to inform the market when it's time to inform the market about anything. Let's move on to Swift.
You bet. All right. So Swift is right on the Cortez trend. We were already chatting about it a little bit here. So zooming in on the project, we can kind of just do a little bit about the kind of bigger story here. And you note that over in the bottom right, I have Fourmile listed as a new discovery. It's far from a new discovery anymore. I'm going to have to update that. And I had 3.2 million ounces at 10 grams, and that was from their 2023 resource. That's now 15 million ounces at 15 grams. So I very rarely, aside from the best deposits in the world, do you ever see an initial resource grade go higher, right? It's always like, hey, we got up to 8 million ounces, but we're now 7.5 grams per ton, right? The fact that they've been able to 5x the resource and also add like a 30% increase in grade is pretty astounding. So, I mean, and it just highlights that this truly is like it may redefine what a tier 1 deposit really is, right? Because it certainly exceeds their minimum expectations for that. So pretty excited about how that's coming together. And when I mentioned, being a bookend, 4 miles on the far right here of the Cortez trend. And then you have Swift, which is 75 square kilometers. If I actually took, since I can't draw on Google Meets, I'll just have you visualize this. But if you were to take the entire Swift project and plop it over top of the Gold Rush, 4 Mile, and Cortez Hills area, you could fit all three of those, roughly probably 40 million ounces now of gold into our project. So there is a ton of room to make multiple discoveries on the project. We're actually drilling 2 different targets this year. So last year we hit, when I say we, I mean NGM, our partners at Nevada Gold Mines. They drilled 2.7 meters of 7 grams, including a meter of 10 grams. And if we zoom in on that little corner there's actually 2 target areas that we're focusing on. So the Southwest Swift corridor, and then we also have the Mill Creek mineralized corridor. And, what gets me really excited about Southwest Swift, for example, you look to hole 3, for example, that hit 52 meters of 0.4. You look to hole 2, 45 meters of 0.2. And then right smack in the middle of that, you hit a meter of 10 grams with hole 6. And that was actually faulted off. So we drilled into a good looking zone. And then the favorable stratigraphy that would be the host for all those deposits in the Cortez trend got lopped off by a fault. So I feel like we didn't fully test the full target with hole 6, but we did hit high grade. What we're now doing is holes 1, 2, 3, 4. They're testing a long strike and hoping that we can actually hit the preserved host rock, hit that same preserved host rock, but hopefully get some higher grade within that kind of structural corridor. So really, really impactful program for us. I think anything better than, just hitting multiple meters of, similar grades would be huge, right? Every single drill program we've done, every generation of drilling has had the best gram and meter intercept in company history, right? Like every year it's getting better and better and better. So if that trend hopefully continues, I'm hoping that we'll see multiple meters of 10 grams per ton, for example. And I think a real kind of judge of success for this program would be if we can hit 100-gram meter intercept or better, so 10 meters of 10 grams, 20 meters of 5, anything like that would really show, I think, the kind of scale that you need to see for a Cortez trend discovery, and would be very, very exciting.
How many holes, this year?
They've budgeted for up to 5, but I'm skeptical that we're actually going to get the full 5 done. And the reason being is we had some delays getting the pre-collar done, and we also had some delays getting a core rig. I think it can't get a better sign of a bull market than struggling to find drill rigs, right?
Barrick is having trouble finding a drill rig,
yes,
guys.
Let's just put that in perspective here. One of the bigger companies in the world is struggling to get drill rigs. So yeah, I think we're probably going to fall more into the 3 to 4 hole range myself. But it wouldn't be because of lack of interest in the project or anything like that. What it comes down to is we have a plan of operations permit that was supposed to have been approved in May, and we're going to be lucky if we get it by November. So that plan of operations allows us to pretty much drill wherever we want within the project area. And it'll give Barrick or NGM a lot of flexibility on drilling the holes from the exact orientations they want to see. And so they put off starting the program, hoping that permit would get approved in June, July, and just never did. So they said, the hell with it, we're gonna go and get as many holes as we can in this fall, and that's what we're doing. So I think 2 to 3, or no, I think more than 2 to 3, but 3 to 4 hopefully is a reasonable target, and we'll just see where it goes.
All right, so we'll say 3 holes to be safe.
Yeah,
and they're gonna drill through the winter there.
No, you get it. That's the problem. Like, it's at Swift, unlike Selena, where I could drill through the winter, it's just a little more of a pain in the butt. At Swift, you can get up to 20, 30 feet of snow up in the higher parts of the project.
So they have to shut down next month?
Yeah, we'd have to have, if we make a 4 mile type discovery, they will certainly build roads, rock them in, create the infrastructure required to be able to drill Swift year round, but we're not there yet, right? That's a $300,000-$400,000 commitment just in road building to kind of get a winter ready project at those elevations. So for now, yeah, we're kind of about a May till November, May to December drilling program.
Okay. And as far as the reporting here, should we just set expectations that you'll report, the 3 holes at the same time?
I'm actually hoping to do, if I can, I'll do all the holes separately, right? If they're showing positive, hey, we're moving this thing forward and it's looking interesting. We'll probably try to do them hole by hole, so that people can kind of see, how the project's developing throughout the drill program. That's the intention. I think the first, reasonable to think maybe, we're still drilling hole number 1. These are deep holes. We're at like 3,700 feet in that hole right now. So probably early to mid-November could potentially be when we start getting news out for the first hole. I wouldn't be surprised then if second hole could be late, depending on when this year we get it. It might end up being January, right? Kind of just depends on how quick we get results. I'm not going to put out a press release on, December 20th or something like that. So we'll just see what we get.
The good news, guys, is the rocks aren't going anywhere. The gold, if it's there, is not going anywhere. And the partner here is not going anywhere. And they've got plenty of time and plenty of money to make sure that this target is properly tested. So it's just a bit of patience is the name of the game, quite frankly.
Yeah, that really is probably the toughest part about being a minority partner in these kind of situations is, even when your partner's excited, right? Like NGM is pretty excited with what they drilled last year. And I think they more than doubled the exploration budget for 2025. So, it shows that they were excited with the results too, but they're a slow moving beast. And, and frankly, if they're looking to add drill rigs at Fourmile, which they did, right? Is Swift going to get a drill rig before Fourmile? No, right? Like that's the problem. So we are competing internally against, projects like Fourmile, even just for logistical reasons, right? Not just budget, but logistics. So the fact that we pulled a $5 million budget when that's the kind of project we're stacking up against in the exact same district, I think is impressive. And it shows that, NGM does believe in this project as a very real target, but it has been a slow process. And frankly, that's part of the reason why we did partner, right? Like we just can't afford to drill $1 million drill holes, right? And just be testing, ideas, right? Like some of these holes that Barrick NGM is drilling, they're not even like you look back at the drill pattern. Look at what they've done. It's been a very systematic spread across that entire mineralized corridor to build a geologic model that actually makes sense. And the first 3, 4, 5 holes, they were strictly viewed as geology holes, right? If we hit something, great, but they're just geology holes. And now hole 6 was every single hole we're doing a televiewer, which is actually a photo survey of the entire drill hole with a downhole piece of downhole tooling. And it can take very precise measurements of every single structure that it sees down the hole. And then Barrick takes those structural measurements, they put them into their geologic model, and they use that to build their structural model, their lithology model. And so hole 6 was the very first hole where they said, okay, we think if we drill this hole right here, that we should be seeing the right structure and the right rocks. And they hit 10 grams per ton. Then they went up, did another televiewer survey and went, shit, that fault was actually higher than we anticipated. So we're going to drop that fault down and start drilling along strike. And we think we should then hit the preserved host rock with holes 1 of this year and holes 2, etc. So it is a very systematic process. And frankly, probably the best group to be exploring for it is these guys. They know the rocks, they know the deposit style better than anybody. And, like you said, they find even half of 4 miles. It's a pretty big win for us. So
yeah, targets don't get much bigger than this one. Swift is a potential 4 mile type of target. And through Ridgeline, you've got a shot at a piece of a big one at a 25 million market cap. So it doesn't get much more exciting than that. But the flip side is got to be patient. And there's no guarantees here. Far from it. It's a pretty high risk hole or program, quite frankly, and that's why I partnered with one of the biggest gold mining companies in the world. So let's move on, and best of luck there. It couldn't be much more exciting than those 2 drill programs right now, quite frankly. Both of them have the potential to make a major new discovery in a great jurisdiction. So you can't ask for much more than that as a junior mining investor. Tungsten spin out company. So I'm seeing that starting to trade publicly now. Tell us about that and how do we profit as shareholders of RDG?
No, absolutely. And I think that's a perfect kind of segue back to kind of how our business model has kind of evolved over the last 3-4 years. And I think we actually met, maybe 4 years ago, Rob? maybe, give or take, when we were still, I think we were drilling Swift ourselves when we first.
2021, yeah.
And I think a big part of, like you said, we have these two incredible opportunities this year. And it's taken like 5 years of putting the story together, doing these deals, doing all that boring background work to get to a point where now we have two very impactful programs happening this year. And it wasn't something that just happened overnight. So part of that whole business model has been trying to get exposure to the critical metals space. Part of our model is we're always adding new projects in the bottom of our pipeline, right? Early stage staking assets. That's like what we did at Big Blue, what we've done at Atlas, and what we also did in the Eagle District, which is a high grade, one of the highest grade tungsten districts in the United States. And so we staked that in 2024. We realized it wasn't the right time for Ridgeline to try to make a shift to a critical metals. We already have a busy enough story as it is. Let's focus on Carlin type gold and CRDs. And what we did is we ended up selling the asset to a company called Spartan Metals. We got a 19.9% stake in Spartan at essentially the seed valuation in the company. And then we also get a 1% NSR on all metals on the project. And I think that's important because there's multi-percent copper and kilogram per ton silver, as well as high grade antimony along the fringes of this big porphyry system that is producing this tungsten deposit. So there's potential for multiple discoveries to be made on this project. And the way that Ridgeline shareholders would benefit is, sorry, I got a little catch in my throat, is that we kind of look at it like how Selena Minerals really successfully monetized their stake in Lift Power back in 2019, 2020. So they did a very similar thing. They saw the lithium market taking off in 2018. They staked some ground up in Northern Canada, and they ended up optioning it to Lift Power, which went for a similar thing, 20% stake, I believe. And that thing went to $14 stock price, right? Now, do I think that Spartan's going to $14? I sure hope so. But I mean, that'd be a pretty special move from what it's trading at, a 50-cent stock. But the main point is we own 20%. Do we plan on holding all 20% for the history for Ridgeline for the next 5 years? Absolutely not, right? We would consider, monetizing blocks of our shares to make sure we don't actually hurt the Spartan stock price. But we'd probably pare the position down to 9.9 when the hopefully stock price hits north of $1. And the idea is we can use that as a non-dilutive financing mechanism for Ridgeline, which would then mean less dilution to shareholders. My goal is to not go back to market for an equity raise in 2026. That's my number one goal.
You took my last question.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Oh, my last question.
Great minds think alike. So yeah, we don't want to go back to market. And the reason is we had to really grind through this bear market. We did deals. We did some really painful raises that frankly just, they hurt, right? Like I'm the largest individual shareholder. I was getting diluted just like everybody else pretty dramatically every time we did these raises. So I don't want to see any more dilution. We have warrants that are currently in the money. We have a meaningful equity stake in a company that I think is going to rip over the next 6 to 12 months. It's got a great management team and a really great asset. And between warrants and equity sales, the idea is to try to have $5 or $6 million in the bank by PDAC, and none of it through an equity raise.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I love the game plan. I love the upside potential. I love the number of shots on goal we got here in 2025, and fingers crossed. It's Ridgeline's time to shine.
That's where we're at right now. It really is. I mean, we've set the table. It's just fingers crossed. See where it goes.
All right, let's have Thanksgiving dinner, Chad. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, bud. See you.
Cheers.
Thanks.